Yo, what is up, YouTube boxing family and YouTube gaming family? It is I, K-Rad here. I'm back at it with another good video for you guys today. This is going to be a gaming video for all my gamers out there. And I will also talk about the whole PBC leak audio that was being talked about with Ryan Garcia being told by the PBC representation side of Gervonta Tank Davis's fight with him, saying that he cannot have a tune-up before Tank Davis or there will be no fight. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to talk about. But yeah, let's talk about the Gears of War lore, because this is going to be very interesting for those of you that love Gears of War. You know, the whole thing about you know, Gears of War as a whole lore is that Gears of War is a very big game, and I think honestly, you know, it's very interesting to see that the game itself is now coming to a very harsh ending. But I just don't know, like, what's gonna happen. Like, I don't know what's really going to come down to the point of, like, where we could see that the game actually rise to the very end of what people want. And I think what I'm going to be expecting is that you know, we have to really understand where the lore is really going to go. And I feel like this is like one of these games similar to like the new game Callisto Protocol, where we don't know what's going to happen in that game, because, you know, that game is a great game, but look at how far that game has gone just in one game. Like, people don't know where that story is going to go, but I'm hoping that they make like a DLC for that. That game definitely deserves a DLC, but that's a whole nother, you know, storyline to talk about in terms of, you know, what people want to discuss. But in terms of what I'm going to be explaining is just simply that when I see games like Gears of War have continuations, the very first thing that comes to my mind is understanding how is that continuation going to proceed, and what is going to be the procedures that these you know, AAA developing companies will do. The biggest thing with Gears of War is that they're a very huge game. They have a lot of content in terms of, you know, what they do, and they have a lot of expansion. And I think honestly, when it comes down to it, it's just all about what they're really going to come out with. I think the great thing about it is just that, you know, Gears of War is a great franchise, and obviously the original developers was Coalition, I think. But I mean, still, you know, it's a very great company, and, you know, whoever did make it, hold on, let me just look up the developer. I think it was Coalition Studio. No, it was made by the publishers were definitely made by Epic Games. Yeah, it was made by Epic Games, and the Coalition, and then Splash Damage, and then People Can Fly. So these were the developing, you know, companies. But now, from my understanding, the new Coalition, or the new developing team, will be 343 Industries, right? 343 Industries, Gears of War 6. Yeah, because, like, I know Gears of War 6 is in development right now. So 343 Industries is going to be making to help towards Gears of War 6. And I think the Coalition is still working on it, as far as what I'm hearing as well. But I'm not too worried about the development. I'm just going to talk about what I think is going to happen in the storyline, and then I'll get up out of here. So my whole thoughts about the storyline is that, obviously, for those of you that don't know, the whole situation with Gears of War was that at the very end of the game, we see that there was a choice that you had between killing Dell or JD. If you guys don't know who Dell is, he's the son of Cole. Cole Yeah, Cole in Gears of War. I forgot what his last name is. I think his name was Cole Young or Cole something. But basically, that was one of the choices that you had in letting either of them live. But the whole deal with it was that Queen Reyna, who is technically related to Queen Mira, who is the daughter of Queen Mira, she unfortunately got killed. Well, she didn't really, like, she got controlled by the Locust. Like, her gene pool is somehow related to this DNA called sire DNA. And if you guys don't know what sire DNA is, this is a DNA that was, like, I guess, like, you know, developed in some scientific unit out of at the COG. If you guys don't know who the COG is, I would heavily suggest going into Gears of War 1 and playing that up until 6. Or if you guys just want to look at the cutscenes or the lore, you could easily read the comic books to better understand like how the Gears of War lore is structured in terms of how the characters were built and how everything was put into style. But the COG, that's a military governmental institution in which, if we're talking about nation states, I would assume that this was an American militaristic unit that was working with the state, and the COG, they're their own unit of militaristic, you know, like, I don't want to say that they really listen to a leader. Like, these are people that are formed together to make a decentralized coalition of their own. And, you know, whether people want to make it into like a political issue, like, I really don't think that's true. I think, you know, the whole point of Gears of War is that humans are facing up against the Locust, which was a scientific experiment gone wrong that was led by Queen Mira, in which she was technically a genetic tool used by the COG, I think, because she was technically created by some form of scientists that were running experiments on her, and for some weird reason she was able to have the ability to control you know, the Locust, in which she was created, you know, in means of being used as a scientific experiment for the means of Gears of War being a thing. Because without her, if she was never to be in existence, then two things would have happened. There would have been a brand new leader leading, you know, the Locusts. And if you guys don't know who the Locusts are, they were a alienated like humanoid race of people that was mutated from a massive scientific failure. Basically, they're like mutated creatures that have alienated structures, and these are, you know, alienated monsters that are led by like a queen, you know, driven race. So they're technically like, you know, manipulated human bodies that are mixed with alienated mutated structure that makes them into like killing monster machines. So that's the whole point of having you know, the Locusts in effect, because the Locusts are technically a man-made created you know, issue that was created, you know, for the event of going to war with the COG, which is led by Queen Mira. If you don't know who Queen Mira is, just take a look at her fandom or her lore description. She has a lot of, you know, really messed up ideas of what she wanted to do. Basically, the reason why she's leading the Locust is because that she got screwed over by some form of the COG, you know, scientists that were manipulating her. I mean, there's like plenty of characters that I'm not really gonna go too deep into, but just to make it easy and simple, she was not supposed to be evil. She was basically, you know, she was heavily manipulated by people that wanted to take advantage of her. So therefore, she used that aggression against the COG, which is the coalition army group that is probably connected with the original governmental state, in which there was like many different areas that they had. I forgot what the geographic locations that the COG owned, but basically they had a massive, you know, landscape of territories that they've held down. And basically the COG is, you know, almost like a mercenary like organization. Well, I wouldn't even say mercenary, but, you know, these are people that were created in response to the Locusts, in which the Locusts had been breeding multiple races and multiple genetic pools of monsters that were going against the coalition or the cog. So basically, this is all pre-designed for the monsters to come about, and you see like all the different breeds of certain animalistic creature like humanoid monsters, because you know they look like humans but they're really just monsters. But I mean, like for the most part, like most of their monster breeds are definitely non-human, because you know the locust is like a, you know, it's like an insect breeding monsterish group of alienated humanoid creatures. So you know there's really no reason of like how they are really related to human, you know, life, because they're really just mutated monstrous beings. So that's where Queen Mira, she took advantage of everything to basically go to war with Marcus Phoenix and then all the other major characters. His brother Dominic, unfortunately, he passed away in Gears of War 3. You still have Cole Young, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm just gonna call him Cole. That was, you know, one of the other major characters. And then who else did you have? You had a whole bunch of other, you know, certain people of different, you know, regions, I would say. So I mean, you know, it's very interesting to see that that the whole Gears roster, these were all people that signed up, you know, with the cog to fight against the Locusts, because the Locusts were a very destructive, you know, alienated, mutated group of monsters. So that was really the whole purpose of seeing the wars go back and forth, and then you see these characters just die, like Clayton Carmine. Well, no, not Clayton Carmine, but his brother Anthony, the female Carmine character, and then the other Carmine character that was on the machine gun in Gears of War 4, unfortunately. So yeah, Gears of War is a very sad game. You start to understand that there's so much lore in the comics that the game itself just feels like a really destructive, sad movie. And unfortunately, you know, that's really how it goes down. You know, that's really the bad thing, you know, about it, because what happens is that, you know, when you start to understand how these characters ended up dying, you know, you'll understand the whole link of like how everything started and then how it all ended. I think honestly, when it comes down to it, Gears of War is a very interesting game of how the lore really began. But once you understand how the lore really structured itself, you'll know that this game really had like a lot of effort put into it for people to not understand like the whole basis of like how everything started. But as far as Gears of War 6 goes, I think it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen between the deaths that were given or that were offered, or basically the sequel deaths of either JD Phoenix, that's Marcus Phoenix's son, and then, you know, Dell, that's Cole's, you know, son. That's the black guy, if you guys know who I'm talking about. But how I think it's all going to play out is that you know, there's going to be a massive, you know, like, you know, retaliation against Queen Reyna. And Queen Reyna is technically Queen Mira's daughter, in which, you know, to better explain Queen Mira, she was used as a lab testing experiment that was most likely held, you know, by the COG. And there was a DNA thing called sire DNA that was used, you know, in her for her to be used as a testing subject. And I guess apparently she was able to escape the lab facility that was being used on her. And she managed to have the ability to control, you know, the locusts that were created out of, you know, the scientific, you know, experimentations that were done onto certain individuals. So, I mean, that's really like the biggest thing about it, because people don't know how the locust really came about in the game. But if you just go ahead and just take a look at it, you know, it's not hard to really understand. The hard understanding of it is just why the characters themselves have their own mindsets of what they believed in, and what they did to believe that was the right way to go about, moving forward. I just think honestly, when it comes down to it with Queen Mira, she obviously died to Marcus in Gears of War 3, so it only took like three parts for Queen Mira to, officially get killed by Marcus, because Marcus, he was trying to kill Queen Mira for the event of, basically retaliating back for his father being dead, on top of, Dominic, sacrificing himself to the Lambent drones and the locusts. If you guys don't know who the Lambent drones are, the Lambent drones are a monstrous mutation from the locusts. These are like alienated creatures that are basically mutated off of the result of this thing called emulsion. And I think what happened was that Marcus's father, he was trying to understand where this emulsion was coming from, because his father used to be a scientist. So he passed away for the sake of trying to figure out how to kill off the emulsion, in which in Gears of War 6, the Lambent drones, or the Lambent creature, or the Lambent locust creatures, they're technically still alive. So, for those of you that are trying to understand like the whole mindset of, everything, you'll understand, how the game will definitely play itself out. So I think it'll be very interesting for people that want to know more about the lore as a whole. It's going to be very fun to see, how everything plays out. I think with the Lambent drones and all the rest of the Lambent locust creatures that are in the game, I think they're going to definitely be in Gears of War 6. These, they're definitely going to play like a massive role in creating their hive minds of different monsters and different evolutions of who they are. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the game will officially end, with the drones, with the Lambent, creature, modification, monsters of different types. So that's going to be interesting to understand, who they really are, and what their main motion of what they're going to do will happen. So I think it's going to be very interesting to understand what they will get themselves into. I'd say on top of that, when you take a look at how should I say, when you take a look at the characters for the COG, let me dive into that. I think what's gonna happen with them is that you have JD, you have Dell, so we don't know what's gonna happen to them when we see the evolution of what's gonna happen with their expansion of the story. But I would most likely think that if they're really going to play this whole sequel of maybe what's going to happen if you go this route of the post-death of Dell or JD, this is what's going to happen with their storyline and what's going to be brought up in their lore. But I don't think they're really going to go that far with it. I just think honestly, when it comes down to it, it's just really going to be a very weird, interesting factor where, I'm hoping that they don't have that lore involved. Maybe they'll try to twist it to say Queen Reyna was not able to kill one of the characters that were held by her tentacles, because she's a mutated monster. And if you don't know who Queen Reyna is, she's Kate's mother. I think her name is Katie or Kate, but Kate, she's basically she's basically the relative to Queen Mira. She's connected with Queen Mira's sire DNA, in which that's what the DNA used to control the locusts, in which the locusts, after Gears of War 3, they ended up becoming the Swarm. So the Swarm are basically the I guess they're the lesser version of the locusts, because they're now weaker. They weren't able to have the queen right by her or right by them, because what happens is that if the locusts, if they don't have a queen, they basically die out. They're basically clueless monsters that don't have something to turn back to. So that's really like the only problem with, you know, like the locusts, because what happens with them is that they basically go they go helpless, and then they start going insane for the sake of trying to see a new you know, like a new group being formed. And I think that's really why the locusts are so desperate every time when they fight, because it's like what they're trying to do is that they have something that they want to keep on going, and that's obviously going to war constantly. So I mean, that's really what the biggest issue with the locusts, in which, you know, they're now called the swarm. But you'll understand like how they operate, you know, as as Gears of War 6, you know, comes to that next game. I don't think Coalition or 343 Studios, in which that's the company that made Halo Infinite, will ever make more Gears of War games predating to this current game that's coming out, or for Gears of War 6 coming out. So I think honestly, when it comes down to it, it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen for the continuation of the game series, because I would like to see Gears of War 6 become like the final game for the game franchise. So I think that's what's going to be like the biggest, you know, takeaway from it. So I think in closing, what's going to happen is that Marcus Phoenix, he's probably going to come to his very last days. He's probably going to end up dying in the game, because, you know, he is very old. So I wouldn't think that they would ever continue him in the game. Maybe they'll use him as a, I don't know, maybe they'll use him as like a scientist, or he'll probably end up becoming like the, you know, maybe like the president of the COG, because, you know, they're like, you know, that the COG is like obviously like a militarized structure of people, but, you know, they don't, you know, operate as like a state. They really just operate as like a, you know, private security, you know, coalition group of people that provide you know, security for people that need, you know, their help. But obviously the COG, they're not liked because they have, you know, certain people in leadership that acts in a certain way of being status, of them doing things that, you know, other people in the Gears of War world, in which, you know, Gears of War is like, it's not like a, how should I say, it's not like a nation state that was once unified, in which, if we want to say like this is like the, you know, United States that ended up being invaded of its own with, you know, the locusts coming in, and then it was just destroying cities all over, you know, the world. Like, that's not what Gears of War really is about. It's just talking about fictitious lands that were there, in which if you don't know what the lands or the area maps of Gears of War, the civilizations in the Gears of War timeline, I think there was areas like Azura, yeah, like basically the COG was basically its own governmental institution, and they were basically a massive authoritarian line of people, or massive authoritarian group of people that wanted, you know, to control people and have this governmental militarized, you know, alliance where everyone had to be, you know, basically told what to do. And, you know, you'll understand how everything will, you know, will come, you know, about. But I'm looking over here on fandom.com. The Coalition of Ordered Governments, colloquially shortened for the Coalition, was a supernatural and intergovernmental military collective originating from planet Sarah during the Age of Silence. In the Age of Silence, that was the golden age when humanity rejected the concept of war at the end of the millennium, the long period called the Age of Armageddon. So this is something that was created at the very beginning of Gears of War. And if you don't understand how these wars really came about, the COG, they are a very authoritarian group of people. But with Marcus Phoenix and the rest of everyone else, Marcus wasn't really in it for, you know, really wanting to become part of a tyrannical government, because it's like the problem was is that the political ideology was so broken that the COG, they didn't really have anything to really do other than be like, look, the locusts are getting out of control. We have, you know, Reina Diaz, which she used to be part of the COG for a very long time, and then Kate Diaz. Honestly, like, I'm not gonna lie, but they do look very, very Mexican, so they probably do have like the Mexican root heritage or whatever. But Reina Diaz, she's a very interesting character. She played massive role in Gears of War 4 leading into 5, and then obviously, you know, she's controlled by the locusts, or she has, you know, what the DNA connected to control the locusts. So, you know, she really turned evil to the level of her being turned into, you know, a modified queen. And the whole thing about it was that she participated in the Pendulum Wars, the Locust War, and then the Lambent, you know, pandemic. That was at the evolution of what the Lambent monsters that were created from the locusts, from the emotion. So obviously, with her being like the queen, she runs like the hive that was basically used to, you know, basically create like the swarm, and the swarm is like the same thing for locusts. And the reason why it's called like the swarm, the swarm was, you know, trying to basically expand their locust, you know, tribe of monsters. And, you know, the more they expand with the queen, that's what keeps them alive as a tribe of people. So really, Reina, she's really not supposed to be in this position. She's really supposed to be, you know, more of a, she's supposed to be more of like a good character, but the locusts took her over, so she's really now controlled by, you know, the hive or the swarm that's connected to her sire DNA, that makes her control everything out of what the locusts. But you know, for those of you that want to understand Kate's story, she's also related to Queen Mira, so therefore they have the, you know, they have the whatchamacallit, they have the DNA that's connected to Mira's, you know, DNA, you know, in the first place. And if you guys want to know the whole thing about, you know, the research, you know, facility that she was in, it's called the New Hope Research, you know, facility. She was a subject to treat other children afflicted with rust lung. And rust lung, if you guys don't know what rust lung was, that was a scientific facility, I believe. It was like a secret laboratory that was made by the COG. But basically, she was a child of an emotion minor, and she was born with a genetic ill immunity, or genetic immunity to the ill effects of the emotion. So basically, this is leading up to the locusts being mutated along with the Lambent drones that were created as well. So here on fandom, if you guys just go take a look at it, just search in Gears of War 6 or Gears of War fandom lore. But when she was brought to the facility, it was a secret laboratory in Mount Kadar by a French political group through genetic experiments led by Dr. Niles Sampson. That's the guy that Kate and Dell were at the facility that Queen Mira was being tested by the way, by Sire and Niles Sampson and you know, all the other crazy scientists. But right here in Fandom's website, it says Mira's embryonic stem cells and sire DNA were responsible for the creation of the locust horde. So she's technically responsible for the locusts. Wow. So basically her genetic immunity created the locusts, because otherwise, if she wasn't in that position, the locusts would have been dead. So yeah, her stem cells created the creation of the locusts. So she has this thing called sire DNA that was responsible for the creation of the locust horde. In adulthood, she began a relationship with Dr. Torres and had a daughter named Reina. See now, Dr. Torres, I don't know too much about this guy, but I think honestly, we'll understand that more as Gears of War 6 makes its opening, scenes of like understanding how everything started. But this is like one of the doctors that worked with Dr. Niles Sampson, and they had the daughter Reyna, together. And then shortly after she was birthed, Mira was led to believe that, she was led to believe by Niles that Reyna died when Taurus escaped with her. And Mira, distraught, led the Locusts to slaughter all the scientists, including Niles, and establish them as an independent race. As queen of the Locust Horde, Mira led her people underground in the Hollow to create Nexus, a civilization of religion, science, technology, culture, and militarization. In the following years, the effects of the emotion began infecting the Locusts, known as lambency, and caused an epidemic in the Hollow. Queen Mira enlisted the aid of cog scientist Professor Adam Phoenix to cure the lambent without harming the Locusts. Unable to find a safe solution for the Locusts, Queen Mira demanded the genocide of human race by emerging onto the surface and waging war. The conflict was nearly successful in the extinction of the humans. 17 years later, after Emergence Day, Queen Mira was killed by Sergeant Marcus Phoenix. And if you guys don't know what Emergence Day was a war that was led by Marcus Phoenix and everybody else that was going to war with Queen Mira. It was basically known as E-Day. It was a swift, full-scale, coordinated, and unprecedented planet-wide assault on the surface of Sarah, initiated by the subterranean race of the Locust Horde. Yep, so this is like a war that happened after the Pendulum Wars. This happened 6 weeks after the end of the Pendulum Wars. Nearly every major city on the surface of Sarah. And if you guys don't know who, like what Sarah was a city, or actually no, it was a habitable planet that was a home world of humanity. The planet had a 26-hour day. Oh wow, that's crazy. 26 hours a day. I don't know how I would live like my life like that. The topography consisted of a few very large contiguous continents surrounded by the Serrano Ocean, as well as several small island chains. Beneath the surface of Sarah existed the Hollow, which is the area that Queen Mira created. Honeycombs of tunnels, caverns, permeating the planet's crust that was home to the Locust Lord and the Lambent. Sarah also possessed 2 moons. Sarah had a history of conflict that it took it and its inhabitants to the brink of destruction. This shocked the people into a rejection of their destructive ways, leading to a golden age. Although most conflict was solved peacefully, troublesome social issues such as civil liberties and crime remained. A golden age of peace, culture, science, and the arts ensued. Yet one problem still stood prominent: energy. Sarah's sources of fossil nuclear fuels were not sufficient to meet the rising global demand. Emulsion, with its promise of near limitless energy, was sought to be the solution to mankind's increasing need for energy, and quickly became a key power source. However, the discovery of emulsion caused a shift of political and economic power, as well instigating war between those countries fortunate enough to have large emulsion reserves, and which were not. The conflict that ensued, known as the Pendulum Wars, raged on for 79 years. So basically, to make this easier, the COG, they were basically a nation of its own, of a governmental structure, in which it was basically fighting for resources. So basically, we're not even in planet Earth anymore. We're basically in a different planet called the planet of Sarah. And Queen Mira, by the way, she was basically an experiment that was brought in to heal the people that were basically getting sick from the emulsion in planet Sarah. Because if you don't know what the emulsion was a very destructive resource of poison that was actually very contagious and you know, like I assume it was some form of nuclearized, you know, energy that was screwing over many people in that event of the storyline. So moving forward with Mira, after the emergence day was, you know, committed, she was killed by Marcus following the extinction of the Lambent and defeat of the Locust by Professor Adam Phoenix's emotion countermeasure weapon. Unknown to humans, Mira's consciousness remained within the matriarch. And if you don't know who the matriarch was created by the grandmother of I think Mira, or basically, or actually no, basically the matriarch was the very first successful hybrid created at Mount Kadar laboratory and was the original berserker. So if you don't know who the berserker was, that's that crazy like looking gigantic monstrous, you know, alienated creature. It's basically like it's a female destructive brute alienated, you know, like basically think of it as a destructive alienated female like creature that is humanoid and is very monstrously disgusting. That's basically one of the monsters that were basically evolved from the original berserker of the Horde. So this new monster that's in Gears of War 6, it's called the Matriarch. I'm pretty sure it did come out in Gears of War 4. I don't think I've ever fought it in the campaign, but yeah, it's a crazy ass monster. If you guys know who I'm talking, about. But moving forward, this is created by Dr. Niall Sampson and his team of scientists by combining the embryonic stem cells of Mira, a human genetically immune to emotion, which is the destructive resource out in planet Sarah. So Emulsia is it's a parasitic fungi that has appeared as naturally occurring luminescent golden, highly volatile, low viscosity fluid. It is found in the geological formations beneath Sarah's surface, known as the Hollow. That's the area where that's the area within the planet that Queen Mira brought her locusts down there to quote unquote create like the locust's expansion, in which the fungi itself really just took over the the locust, and then it turned into like the Lambent. So that's where you see all these crazy ass monsters fighting Marcus and the rest of the COG militarized soldiers in Gears of War 3, leading into the the end of the series, or the end of that group of alienated creatures. So I mean, basically the whole thing is that these are a lot of, these are a lot of evolutions of different events that were created to create more problems, and this is all done by human man. This is all created by human mankind to create a massive destruction of the human race per se. And then it was like a new crazy race of alienated creatures that was basically created of its own. And for those of you that don't know what sires are human children mutated creatures. So basically, again, this is a they're basically molecularly designed human mankind made poison creatures. So they were human children mutated from the emotion poisoning. So that's what the genetic parasite. That's a fungi parasite that came from planet Sarah. And this is genetic experimentation that were the ancestors to the locust horde. So this is where the locusts got their super super soldier like massive monstrous powers to have super strength, and then they were able to like walk around and do crazy stuff. Basically they were the ancestors to the locust horde. So these were the creatures that were originally called the sires. So once the sires, they basically passed on their genes. That's what created the locust horde, for them to create more monsters out of their own, because basically they're not humans anymore. You know, they're related to humans in a sense of having the human-like gene pool to walk around, to have, you know, emotional, you know, distress, and then also create some form of, you know, physical type movement to do what they do. But this is coming from the New Hope research facility that was under the COG, in which, you know, they had their Department of Health, or their governmental DOH, under the Monroe administration. The director of the facility, Dr. Niall Sampson, was tasked with finding a cure. Transgenic experimentation was done by mutating the emotion miner's children. Yo, that's crazy! With the DNA of indigenous creatures from the Hollow, transforming them in what he called the Sires, distempered, highly aggressive, uncontrollable, and genetically unstable chimeras. Due to moral objections and attacks by the Sires, many staff members resigned and leaked New Hope's information to the public. The facility was shut down by Chairman Monroe and indicted all that were involved, while many of the Sires were left behind in stasis tanks. A fringe political group with the Monroe administration believed in Sampson's work and transferred him, his remaining loyal staff, and several of the Sires to a secret facility inside the caves of Mount Kadar, where he continued his research. The DNA of the Sires were combined with the embryonic cells of Queen Mira, a child born with emotion immunity. So that's why she's important, because she was a cure to get rid of the Sires. So her DNA was being mixed with the Sire DNA to find a cure to get rid of all the monsters. So now I understand, because I was a little bit confused. So the matriarch itself, this is a monster that was created at the Mount Kadar laboratory, which was a ancestral child to the berserker of the Locust Horde, and Niall Sampson created it for the sake of, you know, thinking like this is gonna be like a good idea, but it wasn't. So the DNA created, so this DNA is like this is a race hybrid, monstrous, alienated, half human, half alienated creature. It utilized as a strong, obedient military force to aid the coalition of Order Government's army in the Pendulum Wars. The matriarch was the mother of the Locust Horde and reproduced the first generation of drones. Oh, and who were the drones? Yes, these were the crazy ass soldiers that you fight in Gears of War that be having all these guns and everything, which, you know, that was led by Queen Mira. But these are like gigantic, alienated, half human, half alienated, monstrous creatures that, you know, look like scions. You know, they like basically think of Scion from League of Legends and just make it into like a messed up monster. So they were bred by the queen. Yeah, they were bred by Queen Mira's monsters. So yeah, Gears of War is a really messed up game, but once you understand it and once you look at like the lore, Queen Mira, she was basically evil from the beginning, because she had a messed up mindset of her own, but she was supposed to be used as a cure to basically bring humanity, you know, together, so therefore everybody could be freed from the emotion infection that was basically taking multiple people's lives, that eventually turned them into you know, destructive monsters in the planet of Sarah. Because Earth is no longer, I don't think humans were no longer settling in Earth anymore, but now here we are heading into this planet called Sarah, in which I believe it was explaining Gears of War 1. I remember that, but it makes all better sense now of like why these events took place. They all took place because they, you know, there was like a massive war of the COG and all these other nations that were settling in these governmental zones of where everything was going to be held with political control in the planet of Sarah. So I mean, you know, there's like, honestly, there's like a lot of information that I would have to break down more, but now we understand how everything was set up. It even says right here, the matriarch also established a psychomagnetic link between Mira and the Locust Horde, known as the Hive Mind, and allowed Mira complete control over the Locust. Preserved in cryogenic suspension, she survived past the Locust War and connected Mira's daughter Reyna Diaz and granddaughter Kate Diaz to the Swarm, an evolved form of the Locust Horde that survived the emotion. So this matriarch creature, this is a scientific experiment gone wrong. But like, this is supposed to be used as like a counter weapon by the Cog to fight off against like the Locust monsters and other monsters. But yeah, it was just basically messed up. While more berserkers were created following the matriarch, she is the only of her kind to exist and was killed by Corporal Kate Diaz in 42 AE in an attempt to sever her link to the Swarm. So yeah, that's pretty messed up. You know, the Locust Horde, they have a massive they have a massive distinction of different breeds and different monsters, and I'm liking how everything really went down, because now what's going to happen is like everyone's really going to have to understand how these monsters really need to be killed off completely. And now I don't know what's really going to happen, because we don't know what's going to be the whole case behind it. I would hope that there is justice with killing off every single Horde monster, and therefore we get to see Gears of War completely ended, to understand what was at the whole point of the story. But now Marcus is, he's no longer a major asset as far as when I'm speculating here. But in closing, I think what's going to happen in this story is that Reyna, she's going to end up being dead in the main final fight boss mission. That's going to be my prediction of what's going to happen to Reyna, because she's already dead, but her monster mutated form that the Locust decided to take over in her body, that still exists. And I have to say, she has a really nice model with like the Queen version of her, but otherwise she wouldn't have been taken by the Locust Swarm to transform her body to be a disgusting monster. But obviously she was killed by her own daughter Kate Diaz, so that's really that's really the only reason why she's ever back inside of the story, because the Locust decided to use her because she's still valuable with her. Yeah, she's valuable because she has Queen Mira's abilities to control the Locust and turn her into a queen. Otherwise, if they didn't do that and the Locusts were completely dead in Gears of War 5, then we probably wouldn't be talking about Gears of War 6 by now. So I think my final prediction on this is that Gears of War 6 will now be the final end of the game. As far as Marcus's son, JD, or Cole's son, Del, I don't know what's gonna happen to them. I would like to say either of them will be presumed dead, or they will have to make a sequel to say that they didn't die and Queen Reyna was not able to kill either one of them, and Kate was able to either save them, or I don't know, they'll try to make up whatever they'll try to make up whatever type of story to make it seem like that something had to have been created out of the entire story to be a brand new story. So I think that's what's gonna happen for this story, because Queen Reyna, she's definitely going to get killed in Gears of War 6, and I would hope so, because it's like, why would you stop at the game from being fully completed, or almost being close to being completed. So I don't know what's going to happen. I would like to see what's going to be the whole thing behind it. I would hope we get to see more opportunities come about with this game expansion, and obviously as much as I want to talk about like the Hive Busters DLC, I'm probably gonna save that for like another video, because I want to talk about what happened in the Hive Busters and my whole thoughts on it, and will that be a connection to Gears of War 6? I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what's gonna happen in this next Gears of War game, and if it's going to be like the last game that I'm expecting it to be, because I don't want to see any more continuations. I don't think it's necessary to do that. I think it's really just boring, and it's not really making anything better for the game expansion or for the franchise. I think it's best to put this game to rest and definitely just give people what they want. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much how I see it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you think Gears of War 6 will be the final Gears of War game? And what do you think about the franchise as a whole? Do you think the storyline is going to be a lot more different in terms of what they're going, what they're going to give to the fans? So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and yeah, I will see you guys later. And yeah, salute to the mighty LDBC TWT family. I'm out. Thank you guys, and yeah, happy gaming. So I'll see you guys. Bye.